Welcome to the True Crime Storyteller. This video contains audio only. If you want to see images from the true crime stories, check out my Instagram account and tap the follow button to stay tuned. On an early, sultry morning in December 2017, the sun cautiously began to peek through the towering skyscrapers of Kuala Lumpur. The streets were as busy as ever, filled with the constant hum of the bustling metropolis that never seems to sleep. Yet, amidst the shimmering buildings and the hectic activity of this modern city, there hung an unusual silence in the air that morning, an impending stillness ready to be shattered. As the morning sun barely arched over the horizon, the capital of Malaysia was jolted by a grim discovery: the lifeless body of a young woman, fallen on a balcony 6 stories above the street. The discovery sent shockwaves that would soon ripple through the entire city and later, the world. This was no random passerby. The woman lying there was Ivana Smit, an 18-year-old Dutch girl with a promising future as a model. To those around her, Ivana was a shining star, someone who effortlessly moved between the glitter and glamour of nightlife and the high-fashion industry. Her career was flourishing. Her name was already well known in the fashion circles of Malaysia. It was her dream to break through internationally, and that dream seemed within reach. But what unfolded that morning was a nightmare that no one was prepared for. Soon, the first reports began to circulate. A fall from the 20th floor of a luxury apartment complex. A tragic accident, it seemed the most logical explanation. How else could such a thing happen? But before long, questions began to emerge. Questions that, like creeping poison, found their way into the media and the public discourse. Was this truly a fateful fall, the tragic result of a wild night? Or was something far darker at play? Something carefully concealed behind the glossy facades of Kuala Lumpur's elite? Ivana was no stranger to these circles. Born in 1999 in Sittard, Limburg, she moved to Malaysia as a child, quickly finding her place in the modeling world. She was a natural talent. With her long, slender figure and confident demeanor, she had already conquered catwalks and magazine covers at a young age. The city became her playground, and she moved effortlessly between the most exclusive parties and high society events. To the outside world, Ivana appeared to be the perfect picture, a young, successful model with a golden future ahead. But behind the flashing cameras and glamour of the modeling life lurked another world, one that was less visible but always loomed in the background. Kuala Lumpur, with its luxurious clubs and upscale cocktail bars, was also a city of temptation, where the lines between fame and downfall were perilously thin. Parties, alcohol, drugs, and the company of wealthy, influential figures were never far away. It was a world that could be as alluring as it was dangerous, and Ivana was deeply entangled in it. That one fateful evening in December began like so many others, the city pulsing with nightlife, its streets illuminated by neon lights, the scent of incense and street food mingling with the heat of the night. Ivana, full of life and ambition, would take her final steps in this world, unaware that the night to follow would change her life forever. The apartment where she spent that night would become the stage for a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. The question that lingered like a dark shadow over the city was, what exactly happened that night? The evening began innocently enough, like many other nights in the glamorous nightlife of Kuala Lumpur. Ivana Smit found herself in the company of Alexander Johnson and his wife, Luna Almaz, a wealthy American couple who could afford a luxurious lifestyle thanks to Johnson's successful business empire. The couple had deeply entrenched themselves in the high society of Malaysia and were often spotted at exclusive parties, in the pricier nightclubs, and at the VIP tables around the city. They reveled in their fame and a life of abundance. Their wealth and connections seemed to make them untouchable, and their extroverted personalities made them a familiar face in the nightlife scene. Ivana knew the Johnsons through the fashion world and had gone out with them several times before. She was drawn to their charismatic presence and the opportunity to expand her network in these prestigious circles. For her, it was a chance to enjoy the nightlife that Kuala Lumpur had to offer, a life filled with luxury and adventure that felt worlds away from her hometown of Sittard in Limburg. That evening, she was dressed to sparkle, as always the perfect vision, and her appearance quickly caught attention in the bustling nightclubs they visited. They went to some of Kuala Lumpur's most exclusive hotspots, like Zouk, a famous nightclub where the elite and expats gathered for nocturnal escapades. As the evening wore on, drinks flowed abundantly, and the atmosphere became increasingly exuberant. Champagne glasses were raised, the music thumped in the background, and the city's neon lights flashed by like a hazy dream. Yet, the night had a darker side, a side that lingered in the shadows of the festivities and laughter. The Johnsons were known for their love of excess. Drinking was just the beginning. Reportedly, drug use was also a regular part of their wild evenings, and this night was no exception. As the hours ticked away, MDMA and other substances were consumed, a common practice in the circle of wealthy partygoers they inhabited. Ivana, although accustomed to the extravagant party life, found herself in a tumultuous and unpredictable environment, a world where boundaries easily blurred. Around 4 o'clock in the morning, as the night outside slowly gave way to the first signs of dawn, they decided to end their wild night. With the scent of expensive perfumes and alcohol still lingering in the air, Ivana, Alexander, and Luna returned to the 20th floor of the Cap Square residences, one of the most modern and luxurious apartment complexes in Kuala Lumpur. The towers, with their gleaming facades and glass balconies, offered a breathtaking view of the city. But hidden behind this elegant exterior was a night that would unfold in ways invisible to the outside world. The Johnsons' apartment was nothing short of decadent. A penthouse with glass walls, sleek furniture, and an infinity pool overlooking the illuminated skyline of Kuala Lumpur. It was a place that spoke of wealth and power, an oasis far removed from the world below. But that night, this oasis would transform into a site of enigmatic danger. What exactly happened in the following hours remains shrouded in mystery. The details fade into a fog of conflicting statements and fractured memories. As the clock ticked and the city outside slowly awakened, something unfolded within those walls that would forever change Ivana's life. What began as a night filled with drinks, dancing, and decadence would end in tragedy, and the truth about that night might never fully come to light. A few hours after returning to the apartment around 10 in the morning, Ivana's body was discovered in a horrifying manner. She lay naked, her body broken and untouched, on the balcony of an apartment 6 floors below. The homeowner, a shocked resident of the complex, had noticed her body by chance when he stepped out onto his balcony. The lifeless body of the young model lay in an unnatural position, which immediately suggested that her fall had been fatal. Her elegant appearance from the night before was completely gone. What remained was a tragic scene that would plunge the city into a maelstrom of speculation. The news of her death spread rapidly. Soon, the media and the public began to question the circumstances of her fall. How could a young, healthy model fall from an apartment on the 20th floor without anyone in the building seeing or hearing anything? Was it possible for a body to fall from such a height without any witnesses? And why was she naked? These questions created an atmosphere of uncertainty and distrust, fueling a torrent of rumors and theories. The initial statements from the Malaysian authorities provided little clarity. Within a few hours of the discovery of Ivana's body, the first reports emerged. The police concluded that it was a tragic accident. Ivana had reportedly lost her balance due to alcohol and drugs and had fallen from the balcony as a result of an unfortunate series of events. A significant amount of MDMA and alcohol was found in her blood, which the authorities used as decisive evidence for their theory. At first, it seemed the case would be quickly and simply resolved. A night of exuberant partying that had tragically gotten out of hand. But this swift conclusion was not sufficient for those who knew Ivana or for the international media that descended upon the case. There were too many unanswered questions. For example, how could a young woman who, despite her partying, was in good health, simply fall from a balcony without anyone in the apartment noticing? Moreover, her fall went unnoticed, not even by the Johnsons, who were still in the apartment when her body was discovered. What followed was a growing controversy. Although the Malaysian authorities quickly dismissed the case as an accident, doubts began to arise about the thoroughness of the investigation. The apartment was not immediately sealed as a crime scene, and crucial evidence, such as fingerprints and forensic analysis, appeared to have been mishandled. Furthermore, the Johnsons, the last couple to have seen Ivana alive, were only superficially questioned and were allowed to leave the country shortly afterward. It soon became clear that the story was much more complex. Ivana's family in the Netherlands did not believe the authorities' version. Her father, Marcel Smit, began his own crusade for justice. He accused the Malaysian police of negligence and claimed that his daughter did not simply fall from the balcony, but might have become the victim of a crime. The family hired a Dutch forensic expert who discovered signs of possible strangulation during a second autopsy, a fact that had been completely omitted from the original report by the Malaysian authorities. This discovery added fuel to the fire and led to even more speculation about what had truly happened that night. The question of whether Ivana fell voluntarily, was pushed involuntarily, or perhaps experienced something entirely different before her fatal fall, continued to dominate public debate. The media in both Malaysia and the Netherlands were filled with theories. Had the extravagant lifestyle of the Johnsons, with their drugs and sexual escapades, led to a confrontation that spiraled out of control? Or was there another unknown player involved? What transpired in the early morning hours of that fateful night in the luxury apartment became the center of a mystery that might never fully reveal the truth. Ivana's family, torn by grief and disbelief, refused to accept the official story that their daughter had simply fallen out of a window. They knew her too well. Ivana was a young woman full of life, energy, and future plans, someone who would not recklessly put herself in danger. The family had been in contact with her shortly before her death, and nothing in their conversations suggested that she was in a dangerous situation. The idea that she had accidentally fallen from a balcony while at a friend's apartment felt unlikely and even absurd to them. How could this have happened without anyone seeing or hearing anything? And why were there so many unanswered questions? The family began their own search for answers. Marcel Smit, Ivana's father, was determined to uncover the truth. From the very beginning, alarm bells rang. The Johnsons, the couple with whom Ivana had spent the night, had reported her missing only hours later. They claimed they had fallen asleep and noticed nothing. Only when the police knocked on their door to inform them of Ivana's death did they claim to have missed her. But how could it be possible for a young girl to suddenly disappear, and no one noticed in an apartment of just a few dozen square meters? This lack of timely action raised suspicions for Ivana's family and set the tone for what would become a long and arduous fight for justice. Doubts were further fueled by the state in which Ivana's body was found. In addition to the immediate injuries resulting from her fatal fall, numerous bruises on her body indicated possible prior violence. The bruises on her arms, legs, and neck drew particular attention. These marks did not seem consistent with the consequences of a fall from a great height. They suggested instead that Ivana had been held or attacked before she fell, a theory that the family found hard to ignore. To gain clarity, the family hired a private investigator, a local expert who would examine the case with fresh eyes. His investigation uncovered new, disturbing details. The Johnsons' apartment, where Ivana had spent her final hours, was scrutinized. The detective found that certain evidence in the home did not match the Johnsons' statements. No compelling evidence supporting the theory of an accident was found. Additionally, the report from the private investigator revealed that Ivana's injuries suggested she may have been violently restrained, indicating that a struggle may have taken place just before her fall. However, these findings were soon dismissed by the Malaysian police. They stubbornly maintained their original conclusion. Ivana was drunk and under the influence of drugs, and her fall was the tragic result of a series of unfortunate circumstances. The bruises on her body were dismissed as injuries caused by the fall itself, and no further investigation into possible third-party involvement seemed necessary. The official police report remained simple and matter-of-fact, appearing more interested in closing the case quickly than in uncovering the truth. Meanwhile, the Smit family was left with more questions than answers. Their daughter, whom they had watched grow up with love and pride, had died in a mysterious and violent manner. They felt that something was fundamentally wrong with how the case was being handled. Why was it concluded so quickly that it was an accident? Why was the possibility of a crime barely investigated? And why were crucial clues, such as the suspicious bruises on Ivana's body, so easily ignored? Tensions between the family and the Malaysian authorities escalated as more questions remained unanswered. The family eventually also engaged a Dutch forensic pathologist to conduct a second autopsy, and this examination soon revealed shocking new insights. The pathologist discovered signs that could indicate strangulation, possibly by a hand or a rope, further strengthening the theory of an attack. This gave the family the strength to continue their quest for justice, but it also led to a painful realization. The answers they sought might not lie in the hands of the Malaysian authorities. The case increasingly became an international scandal. While the Malaysian police held firm to their statement of an accident, Ivana's parents demanded that the case be reopened and that an independent investigation take place. Their determination was fueled by growing doubts and the sense that their daughter was not a victim of a tragic accident, but of a horrific crime that had so far been covered up. One of the most suspicious and enigmatic elements in the case was the behavior of Alexander Johnson and his wife, Luna Almaz, in the aftermath of Ivana's death. Their statements were shrouded in vagueness and contradictions from the beginning. They claimed that they had fallen asleep that morning and were completely unaware of Ivana's disappearance or her fatal fall. It was only when the police later that morning knocked on their apartment door with the shocking news that Ivana had been found dead on a balcony 6 floors below that they supposedly realized something horrifically wrong had happened. However, this statement immediately raised many questions. How could they not have missed Ivana when they woke up? The apartment was not large, and the three had spent the night together. If the couple indeed woke up around 10 in the morning, how was it possible that they did not notice her absence, especially given that her phone, a crucial part of her daily life as a model, was still in the apartment? It seemed unlikely that Ivana would leave without her phone, suggesting she had no intention of going anywhere. These details made the Johnson statement hard to reconcile with the facts and fueled speculation that they might know more than they admitted. Moreover, both Alexander Johnson and Luna Almaz were surrounded by controversies that further undermined their credibility. Johnson, a wealthy American businessman, was a prominent figure in Kuala Lumpur's nightlife, known for his extravagant parties and excessive lifestyle. He had deep roots in the Malaysian elite and was friends with influential figures in business and government. The couple enjoyed their luxurious life in the city, but this lifestyle did not come without scandals. Johnson had a past filled with tumultuous incidents, including earlier rumors of drug abuse and power, and some business partners whispered about his alleged involvement in shady deals. Johnson's connections and fortune quickly sparked rumors of a possible cover-up. The swift and superficial investigation by the Malaysian police seemed to some an indication that higher powers were at work to protect the couple. Was it Johnson's wealth and influence that caused the case to be closed without further in-depth investigation? Some claimed that his network of friends in Malaysian society and his economic power allowed him to sway important people in his favor. The fact that the couple was released shortly after a brief interrogation reinforced the impression that corruption or conflicts of interest might be at play. Yet, so far, there was no hard evidence pointing to direct wrongdoing. While the Smit family was convinced that Ivana's death was not an accident, the Malaysian police maintained that there were no clear signs of criminal involvement, and everything indicated that Ivana's death was a tragic result of an unfortunate fall, possibly influenced by her drug and alcohol use. In their eyes, Ivana's fall was a result of her impaired coordination and decision-making ability under the influence of these substances. But for Ivana's family, who knew her well and understood she was cautious with drug use, this picture simply did not fit. Although they did not deny that Ivana sometimes experimented at parties, she was not a reckless user. She had experience with nightlife, both in Malaysia and elsewhere, and would, according to them, never find herself in a situation where she would neglect her safety. The family, especially her father, Marcel, refused to accept the conclusions of the Malaysian authorities without question. The idea that their daughter, a young woman full of ambition and zest for life, would have fallen victim to a fatal combination of substances alone felt illogical to them. Too many details surrounding her death remained unanswered, and the circumstances seemed suspicious. With a growing distrust toward the Malaysian authorities, who they believed had hastily dismissed the case, they decided that a more thorough investigation was needed. The family arranged for Ivana's body to be repatriated to the Netherlands, where an independent second autopsy would be performed by a forensic pathologist. This examination was eagerly anticipated, as the family hoped for answers that would help explain the apparent inconsistencies in the official version of events. The findings of the second autopsy were downright disturbing and led to even more questions. The Dutch forensic pathologist discovered, in addition to the already known injuries from the fall, signs of possible violence. What was particularly concerning were the bruises and contusions on Ivana's body, which did not appear to be injuries solely caused by the fall. There were clear signs of bruising on her arms and legs, and most alarmingly, pressure marks on her neck. These findings suggested that Ivana might have engaged in a struggle, or had even been restrained before she fell. The pressure on her neck could indicate strangulation, which could mean that violence preceded her death. This was an extremely alarming result that seriously questioned the accident theory. Despite these new findings, the response from the Malaysian authorities remained unchanged. They stubbornly maintained their original conclusion that Ivana's death was an accident caused by a fatal combination of drugs and alcohol. To them, the injuries were the natural result of a fall from a great height. They dismissed the idea of a crime or third-party involvement, and no further investigations were initiated. The Malaysian police seemed determined to consider the case a closed chapter, despite the growing evidence that might point to something much more sinister. This led to a frustrating legal battle for the Smit family, who felt powerless in their quest for justice. They felt excluded by the Malaysian legal system, which they believed ignored crucial evidence. Every attempt to reopen the case met with bureaucratic obstacles and a wall of silence. While the family became increasingly entrenched in their fight for the truth in the Netherlands, media attention surrounding the mystery of Ivana's death grew. The Dutch media began to ask more questions. How could a young, successful woman die under such suspicious circumstances without a thorough investigation being conducted? Was the Malaysian investigation truly so flawed, or was there more to it? And why was a conclusion drawn so quickly, despite the contradictions in the evidence? The question of whether Ivana's death was a tragic accident, as the Malaysian authorities continued to insist, or if there was serious injustice and possibly a crime at play, remained a hot topic. Ivana Smit's case ultimately became more than just a personal drama for her family. It turned into a fight against a system that seemed negligent in delivering justice, and a search for answers that, despite many obstacles, could not be abandoned. After months of legal battles and public pressure, the Malaysian judge ultimately ruled that there was no conclusive evidence of a crime. The case was closed, and the Johnsons were not prosecuted. For Ivana's family, this remained a bitter pill to swallow. They had lost their daughter under murky circumstances, and the feeling that more was at play than they were being led to believe continued to haunt them. However, the case sparked broader discussions about the safety of young models abroad, the influence of wealthy expats in Southeast Asia, and the failure of justice when national boundaries and political interests are at stake. Ivana's death became a symbol for many other cases where answers were lacking and justice seemed elusive. 4 years after that fateful December night, the death of Ivana Smit remains a mystery that holds both Malaysia and the Netherlands in its grip. The questions surrounding her fall have yet to receive satisfactory answers. What really happened in the early hours of December 7th, 2017, in the luxurious apartment of the Johnsons? Was Ivana the victim of a tragic confluence of circumstances, with alcohol, drugs, and a lack of caution leading to an unfortunate fall from the 20th floor? Or is the truth buried somewhere else, hidden beneath layers of secrecy and possibly even intentional deception? The behavior of the Johnsons, their shady connections, and the quick closure of the police investigation remain central points in the speculations. Luna Almas and Alexander Johnson insisted they were innocent, but their reticence and sudden departure from Malaysia aroused suspicion. Why did the couple never take full responsibility for what happened that night? Why was there no thorough forensic investigation in their apartment? And why did Ivana display injuries that did not fit a simple fall? The lack of convincing answers has only fueled the rumor mill over the years. Various theories emerged, ranging from a violent outburst to an attempt to cover up something much more serious. For Ivana's family, it feels as if time has stood still since her death. They continue to fight for justice, despite the setbacks and frustrations they have encountered in their attempts to uncover the truth. The second autopsy in the Netherlands revealed new facts, but even this hard evidence was dismissed by the Malaysian authorities. The family suspects that Ivana's death was not an accident, but that she became a victim of violence, possibly during a struggle or under suspicious circumstances that have never been fully uncovered. The memory of Ivana, the young model full of ambition and energy, lives on in those who knew her. Her promising career was abruptly cut short by her mysterious death, and although 4 years have passed, the unanswered questions linger like a shadow over her legacy. Each new article in the press, each statement from the family or lawyer, leads to new waves of speculation. Was there a cover-up, with the influential Johnsons using their connections to avoid a major scandal? Or are the apparent contradictions simply the result of a flawed investigation? Despite numerous investigations and media campaigns, no conclusive evidence has been found to definitively support either scenario. The mystery surrounding her death remains stubbornly intact. The global media continues to follow the case with keen interest, but every news report ends with the same conclusion. The truth about what exactly happened that night remains shrouded in darkness. As the Smit family continues to push for a reopening of the investigation and justice for their daughter, it appears that the answers they so desperately seek may never come fully to light. The unresolved nature of the case keeps the memory of Ivana's tragic end alive, but also brings with it a growing sense of injustice. Hope remains that one day a breakthrough will lift the veil of mystery. Until then, the death of Ivana Smit stands as a tragic reminder of how fragile life can be, especially in an environment where wealth, privilege, and power often overshadow the search for truth and justice. And with that, we have reached the end of this episode about the mysterious death of Ivana Smit, a case that, even years later, continues to fascinate and bewilder. The many questions surrounding her death make it difficult to separate fact from fiction. Was it truly a tragic accident caused by a fatal combination of alcohol and drugs? Or is the truth hidden much deeper, tangled in a web of secrets and possible crimes? As we discuss this case, we are confronted with several important questions. What did you think of this case? Was there anything that particularly struck you? The doubts of Ivana's family, the strange behavior of the Johnsons, and the overall lack of a conclusive investigation. What does this say about how such cases are handled? We are very curious about your thoughts and opinions. Feel free to share your insights with us through our social media channels or in the comments below. And if you want to hear more about these intriguing true crime cases, let us know. There are so many stories to tell, from unsolved murders to bizarre crimes that made headlines. We are always looking for new topics, and your input is invaluable. Perhaps you have interesting cases in mind that we should investigate. Don't hesitate to give us tips. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any episodes. We have many more exciting stories in store, so stay tuned for more in-depth analyses and discussions about the dark sides of humanity. Your support and enthusiasm mean a lot to us. Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope we not only captivated you, but also made you think. Until next time, when we shine a light on another dark case, stay safe and remember, sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. It's a world full of mysteries, and we're glad you're taking this journey with us. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.